Think about the last time you stood up from a chair without thinking about it. Really think about it. Not the careful kind of standing. Not the kind where you place both hands on the armrests first, shift your weight forward, rock a little to build momentum, and then push. The effortless kind. The kind you used to do 100 times a day without a single thought. Just up, just moving, just free. For a lot of people watching this right now, that version of standing up feels like it belongs to someone else, someone younger, someone whose legs simply respond the moment the brain says go. And if you have noticed that getting out of a chair now takes a kind of preparation it never used to require, I want you to know something important before we go any further. What you are feeling is real. The hesitation is real. The effort is real. And it is not just age. It is something more specific than that. Something that has a clear explanation and, more importantly, a surprisingly simple solution that most people have never heard connected to this problem before. There is something happening inside your leg muscles in the morning that almost nobody talks about. A kind of energy gap. A disconnection between what your brain is asking your body to do and what your body actually has available to do it with. And it turns out that this gap, this silent lag between intention and movement, may be one of the most underestimated reasons why standing up, walking to the kitchen, getting out of the car, and climbing a single step can all feel so much harder after 60 than they did before. The good news, and I want you to hold on to this because it matters, is that this is not permanent. It is not inevitable. And it may be addressable with something as simple as one small addition to your morning coffee. Not a medication, not an expensive therapy, something that your muscles have been quietly asking for, possibly for years, and that almost no one over 60 is giving them. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly what is happening inside your muscles when you struggle to rise from a chair, why it tends to be worst in the morning, and what one specific ingredient may be able to do to help your body respond faster, more confidently, and more reliably again. If this kind of content matters to you, go ahead and subscribe right now. We cover exactly this, the real physiology of aging, and the practical tools that can help every single week. Now let me show you what is actually going on. And maybe it is not the chair that concerns you most. Maybe it is the couch that sits a little too low. Maybe it is the car seat that requires a technique now, a kind of grip and pull that you have developed quietly over the past year or two without really acknowledging what it means. Maybe it is the restaurant booth that you scan before you even sit down, already calculating whether you will be able to get out of it with some dignity intact. These small adjustments, the ones we make silently and without telling anyone, are the ones that matter most because they tell us that something has shifted, something in the relationship between what we want our body to do and what it actually does. What I want you to understand today is that this shift is not random. It is not simply the mystery of getting older. There is a physiological reason this is happening, a specific mechanism inside the muscle cell itself that changes after 60 in a way that almost no one addresses directly. And once you understand what that mechanism is, the solution becomes not only clear, but remarkably accessible. My name is Dr. Sarah Callahan. I have spent the last 18 years working with older adults in functional medicine and geriatric rehabilitation, with a particular focus on mobility loss and fall prevention. And I want to be very clear about something before I go further. I'm not going to talk to you about bodybuilding. I'm not going to talk about athletic performance or gaining mass or anything that belongs to a different stage of life than the one you are in. What I care about, what I have always cared about, is something much more fundamental than that. I care about whether you can get up from your own couch, whether you can walk to the mailbox without gripping the railing, whether you can be present in your life the way you want to be, without your body quietly limiting your choices before you have even made them. Over the years, I have sat across from hundreds of patients who described the same experience using almost the same words. They would tell me that their legs felt unreliable, not painful, not broken, just unreliable. Like they were sending a message, and the message was arriving a little late. And for a long time, even in the medical world, this was chalked up simply to aging. Muscle loss, the natural decline, something to manage, not to solve. But there is a more precise explanation. And it starts with something called creatine phosphate, and the way your muscle cells store and use energy for short, powerful movements. Here is how I want you to think about it. Imagine your muscle cells in the morning, after 7 or 8 hours of sleep, after a night with no food and no movement. Think of them the way you would think of a car engine that has been sitting in a cold garage overnight. The engine is there, the parts are all intact, but the battery is low, the oil is cold, and the fuel that is needed for a fast ignition, that immediate burst of energy for the first turn of the key, has been partially depleted. Your muscles in the morning are working with a version of that same problem. The specific fuel I am talking about is called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. It is the energy currency your muscle fibers use for every movement, but especially for fast, explosive movements. Standing up from a chair is, from a muscular perspective, one of the most demanding rapid force events your body performs during a normal day. It requires your quadriceps, your glutes, and your core to fire together, quickly, with enough force to overcome gravity and lift your full body weight. That takes an immediate burst of ATP. And if your cells do not have enough creatine phosphate stored to regenerate that ATP fast enough, the movement feels heavy, slow, effortful, like pushing through resistance that should not be there. After 60, two things happen together. The body naturally produces less creatine on its own, and the diet of most older adults contains very little creatine from food. Red meat and fish are the primary sources. Many people eat less of both as they get older. So the gap between what the muscle needs in the morning and what it actually has available quietly widens. And what the muscle needed was never this complicated to provide. I want to tell you about a patient I will call Robert. He was 72 years old when he first came to see me, and he had spent most of his adult life as an automotive mechanic. He was the kind of man who had always moved through the world with a quiet physical confidence. He fixed things with his hands. He crouched under vehicles for hours. He carried heavy parts without ceremony. His body had always simply worked, and because it had always simply worked, he had never given it much thought. The first thing he told me in that appointment was not about pain. He told me about a football game. He had been sitting on his sofa watching a Sunday game with his granddaughter, who was 6 years old at the time. At halftime, he tried to stand up to get a glass of water, and he used the armrest. He pushed himself up with both hands, the way you do when the sofa is too soft and too low, and you need a little help. His granddaughter watched him do it. She did not say anything, neither did he. But he told me he sat back down and did not go get the water. That moment, that small and quiet moment on a Sunday afternoon, was what brought him to my office 3 weeks later. By the time I saw him, the pattern had extended further than that one sofa. He had started choosing chairs based on their height. He avoided certain restaurants because he had learned, through quiet embarrassment, which tables had seats he could not rise from easily. He had developed a method for getting out of his truck that involved gripping the doorframe and swinging his body in a particular way that nobody would notice if they were not looking carefully. He was not in pain. He was adapting. And adaptation, when it happens this gradually and this silently, is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to an older adult, because it feels like coping, but it is actually shrinking. I looked at Robert's morning routine. He drank 2 cups of black coffee, no food until 9 or 10 in the morning, very little red meat, almost no fish. His creatine intake from food sources was essentially zero. His body's natural creatine production, which declined steadily after the age of 50, was giving his muscle cells a fraction of the fast energy reserves they needed for strong, confident movement first thing in the day. I recommended one simple change: 1 teaspoon of creatine monohydrate dissolved into his morning coffee. That was it. No other intervention. No dramatic dietary overhaul. 6 weeks later, he came back. He told me he had gone back to that same sofa. Same game, same halftime break. And he had stood up without using the armrest. He said it like it was a small thing. I told him it was not a small thing at all. Now, I want to pause here for just a moment, because if what I am describing connects to something you have been quietly experiencing yourself, there is a program I want you to know about. This video covers one piece of what I see as a much larger system of functional decline that affects adults over 60. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment below. You can also scan the QR code visible on your screen right now if you are watching on a television. What we cover in the video today is the foundation, but what is in that program goes much further. If you are ready for that next step, go check it out now and then come right back, because we are not done here. Let me now walk you through exactly how creatine monohydrate works in practical terms and what you can reasonably expect if you decide to try it. I want to be specific, because vague advice is not actually helpful, and you deserve specifics. The recommended amount for older adults looking to support functional strength is between 3 and 5 grams per day. That is roughly 1 level teaspoon. You dissolve it in your morning coffee, or in a glass of water if you prefer. It has almost no taste. The morning is the ideal time because that is when your muscle creatine stores are at their lowest, after the overnight fast, and because that is precisely the window when your body needs the most help generating fast energy for movement. What happens inside the muscle when you do this consistently is gradual, but real. The creatine is transported into the muscle cells, where it bonds with phosphate to form creatine phosphate, the molecule your body uses to rapidly regenerate ATP during short bursts of muscular effort. Think of it like restocking a small but critical fuel reserve. Over days and weeks, the reserve grows, and as it grows, the lag between intention and movement begins to shorten. The hesitation begins to ease. The response becomes a little faster, a little more like what you remember. There are things that make this worse, and I want to name them clearly. Skipping breakfast or delaying food until late in the morning leaves your muscles working on fumes during the hours when you are most active and most at risk of a stumble. Chronic low-level dehydration, extremely common in older adults, impairs the electrical conduction between nerve and muscle, slowing the signal that tells your leg to engage. And prolonged sitting without movement breaks accelerates the loss of fast-twitch muscle fibers, the fibers responsible for the quick stabilizing contractions that keep you upright when you shift your weight unexpectedly. Research published in the Journal of Gerontology found that older adults who supplemented with creatine showed measurable improvements in lower body strength and chair rise performance. Studies from the National Institutes of Health have similarly documented that creatine supplementation, particularly when combined with even modest physical activity, helps preserve functional muscle capacity in adults over 60. I want to tell you about one more person before we move forward. A patient I will call Margaret. She was 67, a retired school teacher, and she had quietly stopped visiting her daughter's home because the house had a set of interior stairs she no longer trusted herself on. She did not tell her daughter why. She simply found reasons to meet elsewhere. For a year and a half, she carried that limitation alone, in silence, and with a kind of resigned embarrassment. Margaret began the same protocol. 3 grams of creatine monohydrate in her morning coffee, combined with a 10-minute walk after breakfast. After 6 weeks, she climbed those stairs at her daughter's house. Not effortlessly, but she climbed them. She said it was the first time in over a year that she had felt like herself inside that house. Her balance still needed work. Her confidence on uneven surfaces was still something we were addressing. Those were parts of a larger system that one ingredient alone could not resolve. But the foundation had shifted, and that shift made everything else possible. If you have been watching this and feeling like Margaret, like Robert, like the version of yourself that is quietly making adjustments you have not told anyone about, hear this. You have already spent time today investing in your own understanding. That tells me who you are. You are someone who wants to stay in your life, not retreat from it. The program in the description and in the pinned comment below is built for exactly that person. If you are watching on a television, scan the QR code on your screen right now. Every day that passes without addressing this is a day the gap quietly widens. The link is there. The QR code is there. What happens next is your decision. Here is what I want to leave you with, and I want to say it as clearly as I can. After 60, the body does not stop responding. That is the part that gets lost in the general conversation about aging. The part that gets buried under words like decline and deterioration and the natural process. The body does not stop responding. What changes is what the body needs in order to respond. And for most of the people I have worked with over nearly 2 decades, the gap between what their muscles needed and what they were actually receiving was smaller than they had any reason to believe. You are not broken. Your legs are not failing you out of some irreversible inevitability. They are working with a fuel system that has quietly run low in a way that nobody thought to address, because nobody connected the morning hesitation to the cellular energy deficit to the simple solution sitting in a $5 bag at the pharmacy. What I want for you is not a dramatic transformation. I have never promised those, and I am not about to start. What I want for you is the version of your daily life where getting up from the couch is not something you think about, where the restaurant seat does not require advanced planning, where you can be present in the moments that matter. Your granddaughter at halftime, the stairs at your daughter's house, the walk to the mailbox in the morning, without your body turning those moments into a quiet negotiation. The muscle that hesitates is not a muscle that has given up. It is a muscle that has been waiting, without knowing how to ask for what it needs. And sometimes what it needs is extraordinarily simple. Sometimes the answer is a teaspoon of something dissolved in the coffee you were already going to make. Start there. Be consistent. Give it 6 weeks. Pay attention to what changes in how your body responds. not just during exercise, but in the small, invisible moments of ordinary movement that make up an ordinary day. Those are the moments that tell you the truth about where you actually are. If what you learned today was valuable, please hit the like button right now and subscribe so you do not miss what we cover next. And tell me in the comments, what is the one movement that has become harder for you lately? Getting up from a chair, climbing stairs, getting out of the car? I read every single one of those comments, and your answer helps me know what to cover next. If someone in your life is dealing with this quietly, the way Robert did, the way Margaret did, share this video with them today. Not with everyone, with that specific person you are already thinking of right now. The next video on this channel is going to continue exactly where we left off, going deeper into what your body needs after 60 to stay strong, stable, and fully present in your own life. Subscribe so you are there when it comes out. You have spent your life showing up for the people around you. You deserve to keep showing up for yourself.